Cafe. And tonight, or this afternoon, or first thing in the morning, depending on where you are in the world, it is the last Rock the Casbah before the actual festival itself, which is going ahead in physical form on the 12th of February. Marvelous, fantastic. We have a packed program tonight. We've got Baba C, who's actually here. We've got Baden Prince, who's on his way, and Solar Story, who is somewhere somewhere on the virtual highway, I expect at the moment, trying desperately to join us. And we've got all sorts of stuff going on. Mike is down there desperately. Mike's going to virtually to Morocco, and then Ali, with a bit of luck, will take us into the actual physical, real World Storytelling Cafe Marrakesh. I think there's a little gig going on with Norman somewhere. So right now, I am going to hand over to our host for this evening, Gary Cordingley.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, John. Thank you all. And I do excuse the low light and everything. I was in a bit of a rush getting here, and I'm still in the process of setting up my studio, which I might try and do as we go along. Welcome to the last Rock the Casbah of this series. Obviously, you're planning another festival next year, so we may come back and revisit in a fundraising way in the future. That would be wonderful if people are up to that. But this is the last one for the 2022 festival, and welcome one and all. And we have got a packed night tonight. We've got Babasi, we've got Baden, we've got Sola, if he makes it into the room, and we have Maria, who's here already, and a few other people who've put themselves forward. And not only that, but this is breaking news. Oh, Claire as well. Sorry, Claire, waving away there. Breaking news. I had a text from Liz Weir this afternoon who said she will try and get here at 7 o'clock. Is there room for her to tell a story? Of course there is. So she can't make it to the actual festival, but she can make it to Rock the Casbah tonight, and we look forward to that. So I'll have to pop out of the room for a short while once we get going, just to text her back and to carry on putting my little studio together if I can. So also tonight, of course, it is the grand draw that everybody's been waiting for, holding their breath. We have some books that have been donated by Norman Perrin, who is holding them up now. Maybe you can make a noise, Norman, so that if you could say something, and then it'll clip on your frame, and we'll see what you've got.
Okay, then. This is a signed copy of Duncan Williamson's "Don't Look Back, Jack." So this is being donated by the Four Winds Library, of which I live in, and the tome that is my home, if I will. Anyways, and this is the grand prize. This is not very many of Duncan's books are signed on the market or anything like that. But for those who would like to, there's 3 other books. I'll be quick as possible. Storytellers like themes. So these are duplicates of themed books. One is King of the Cats. And some of you might even tell that story.
I do.
Yeah. African American Folktales, which is an incredible book full of scholarship and very good stories. Almost as many stories as Baba C. And for those who like to ring their bells, here's a story about bells, and mixed with lore and other things like that. So if the names drawn are going to Marrakesh, the book for that person will come with me to Marrakesh. Otherwise, they will be mailed to them. I was about to say that we'll be married to them, but it's past noon, but I'm still not quite awake. They will be either brought with me or mailed to them.
That's brilliant, Norman. Thank you very, very much for that. And it was very generous of you to offer those books up. And it's been exciting. I know people have been donating and getting their name onto the Wheel of Fortune, which we will have at the very end of the show, if that's okay, the very end of the evening. I've already put everybody's names that have donated onto the wheel, and if you donated more than once, your name went on as many times as you donated, and then we'll spin the wheel at the end of the evening. But we have to get to the end of the evening, and it's a journey. It's a journey from here to there, as it always is, and in this case, as often is, a journey of stories. So, and the journey begins with something from Baba C. I don't know if he's only got one story. I don't know if he's got half a dozen. I don't know how much time we've got. This is professional in every way, as it normally comes. And so I'm going to hand the stage. Oh, Solar. Evening, Solar. You've made it to the space.
Yay!
So, I'm going to hand it over to you, Baba C, and
Thank you.
Me. I have to pop out of the room for a minute, but I will be back. And can everybody else?
Pop. That's fine. That's right. You'll be a pop-up. That's kind of a craze here in the States, pop-up things. First of all, I got a very bad pun to share. This is for those of us of a certain age, because the youngins won't get it. All right. But I have a question to ask. And I'm going to ask Solar first, but this is the question. This is the question for everybody. All right. So the United States is tri-coastal. We have the East Coast, the West Coast, and we have the Gulf or whatever. I'm sorry. We have the Gulf Coast. All right. But a train leaves New York. That's on the East Coast at 1 p.m. headed toward the West Coast. And a train leaves from California. That's on the West Coast at 6 a.m. going toward the East Coast. All right. At 100 miles per hour, when will the trains meet? Solar. I'll repeat
I didn't
that.
hear the question. You said, when will the train?
A train leaves New York on the East Coast, headed toward California on the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
A train leaves California on the West Coast, headed for New York on the East Coast. Both trains are, the train from New York leaves at 1 p.m. The train from California leaves at 6 a.m. They're both traveling at 100 miles per hour. They're on the same track. When will they meet?
Oh, wow. I can't answer the question because I don't know what the time difference is
3
between
hours.
the East Coast and the 3 hours.
Yes.
So when will they? Wait a minute, this is you, Baba C. I'm going to spend all this time. I'm going to spend all this time working out mathematically, and then you're going to give me a joke. So I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Anybody else want to take a stab at it?
At the point of impact.
Nope, but that's good. That was an impactful response. Okay.
Well,
so
I don't think they're actually going to meet.
You're kind of on the right road, John Rowe. All right. So listen very carefully. A train leaves from the East Coast traveling toward the West Coast. A train leaves from the West Coast traveling toward the East Coast. Both trains are traveling at 100 miles per hour on the same track. When will they meet? Never, because east is east and west is west, and never the train shall meet.
Oh,
Oh no! I'm cold for.
Right, Norman. I did say it was for people of a certain age.
You're now sleeping in the street in Marrakesh.
That's why I'm glad I realized that there was no point working it out.
Oh, I was trying not to tell that joke, but it came to me twice in my sleep last night, and it's been in my head on and off since Thursday. So I said, okay, if I have to deal with it, I'm going to share it. All right. So here's my story. And I'm taking great liberties with this story. You've heard many different versions of it. I want you to look very carefully at this box, because this box is very important. This box used to contain all the stories in the world, but as you can see now, it is very empty. So this story, of course, was first told, well, would have been a long time ago. You got the idea. So, you see, there was a spider named Shola Anansi. Shola Anansi was a very witty spider. He was a very lazy spider, but he was also a very curious spider. And every now and then, Shola Anansi did something that would astound everyone. And this story is about one of those times. You see, a long time ago, when there were only 3 days in the week, and all people had to do was work, and work some more. That's right. They had to work, and work some more. In fact, they worked so hard, they had to create a 4th day of the week, and eventually a 5th day of the week, which became known as payday. Sadly, after payday, somebody invented a 6th day of the week, and that was called tax day. But that's another story. So back in the days when there were only 4 days in the week or 5 days in the week, people worked. And the only time they got a break is when the sky god, Baden Yameh, would come down from the heavens and open his box of stories, which looked absolutely nothing like this one, and share the stories with the people when they were taking a break from working night and day. And this is before 9 to 5. Well, at the end of sharing the stories, he would gather all the stories up and put it back in his box, and he would go back up to the sky because that's where he lived, because he was a sky god. Well, one day Anansi said, you know, this is not fair. We work and work and work. Well, they work and work and work and work. This is not fair. I, Shola Anansi, must put an end to this. And so he spun himself a web all the way to heaven, all the way to heaven, 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 all the way to heaven. Bop. Now, you don't have to unmute, but if you do, I'm used to the confusion, and you can do this with me. All the way to heaven, 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 all the way to heaven. Bop. Some of you said heaven. No, heaven, heaven, heaven. Anyhow, when he got to heaven, he called on Baden Yameh. He said, Baden Yameh. No answer. Baden Yameh. Still no answer. Baden Yameh. And Baden Yameh heard a disturbance in the force. And he said, who calls my name? Name. It is me, Shola Anansi. You know that look you give to when you were a kid and your siblings were getting on your nerves? Or that look you tried to hide from your parents when they plucked your last nerve? That's the look he had on his face. He says, what do you want, little man? He says, I want you to give me all the stories in the world. Oh, you're serious? Yes. I will do whatever task you request, but in return, you must give me all the stories in the world. Well then, Shola, this is what you must do. You must find and bring to me Rojan, the leopard with a terrible bite. Think about that name for a moment. You must find Heathfield hornets with a sting like fire. And then you must bring me Jasname, the fairy no man can see. Okay, now go. And so Shola Anansi spun his web all the way back down to earth. And he was thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking. That's how the first light bulb got invented, because boop, he had a light bulb moment. And then he said, he found Rojan, the leopard with the terrible, terrible bite. And he said, Jumbo, Rojan. Jumbo, Shola Anansi. You know, you and I have not been spending much time together. I thought today we could play a game. What kind of game could I possibly play with you? I thought we could play the binding game. Oh, the binding game. The binding game. Oh, yes, we must play the binding game. Wait. What is the binding game? That is where I take the vines off the ground, and I throw them over this great big branch, and I tie you by the foot, and I swing you back and forth and forth and back and back and forth and forth and back. And then you get a chance to tie me up by the foot, and swing me back and forth and back and forth and forth and back. So Rojan, the leopard with the terrible bite, thought, this game sounds interesting, but when I tie up Shola or Nancy, I think I will have a snack. In Africa, a spider can grow bigger than Baba C's hand. And so he said, okay, we'll play, but I'll go first. And so Anansi threw the vines over, and he tied Rojan up by the foot, pulled him up in the air, and swung him back and forth and forth and back and forth and back and back and forth. And Rojan said, oh yeah, this is fun. Wee. Okay. Let me down. It's my turn to tie you up. And Shola Anansi said, nope. I got you ready for the sky god. And he left him hanging from the branch. So now he had to think some more. How is he going to capture the heat-filled hornets with the sting like fires? And he thought. Finally, he got himself a great big gourd that looked absolutely nothing like this one. And he put water in the gourd. And then he got some big palm leaves, because I don't think they had finger leaves. He had to get palm leaves. He got the palm leaves, and he went over to the hornets, and he started throwing the water and sprinkling the water all over the hornet's nest. And so the heat-filled hornets came out, and they said, what's going on? We're getting wet. And so Shola Anansi said, it's been raining. That is why you're getting wet. Well, we don't want to get wet. What can we do? He says, I tell you what, why don't you get into my gourd? I'll put the palm leaves over it and protect you from the rain. Oh, that sounds like a good idea, Shola. Thank you very much. And they all flew into the gourd. And as they went in, they started going, buzzy, 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 buzz, 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 buzzy, 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 buzz, 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 buzzy, buzzy, which is not the sound that hornets made, but like I said, I'm taking liberties with the story. And so he put the top on it, and he kept on walking and thinking and thinking and walking and walking and thinking. And after a while, the heat-filled hornet said, oh, is it still raining? They had different voices. Is it still raining? No. Then let us out. No. I got you ready. I have you ready for Beignan May, the sky god. And he put them in a safe place. Now, how is he going to get what? How is he going to get Jasna May, the fairy that no man can see? He remembered that Jasna May liked to tell stories, but never when he was around. She also loved to dance. So he got an idea. And what he did is he found some gum trees, and he tapped the resin and the sap from the gum trees, and he made himself a great big bowl. And he put the gum in there, and he fashioned a baby, a gum baby. No, John Rowe, it wasn't a dumb baby. It was a gum baby. So he fashioned himself a gum baby. Then he took it out the bowl, and he put the gum baby under a tree, and he put the bowl in the gum baby's arms. And then he went home, and he did something very rare for Anansi. He cooked. He fixed mashed yams, not sweet potatoes like they call it in America. He made mashed yams, and he put the honey, and for some reason he got the butter, and he put the butter and the honey in the mash. Oh, it smells so good, it's making me hungry. And then he put the mashed yams in the great big bowl of the gum baby. No, Norman, I didn't say dumb baby. I said gum baby. He put the gum baby, put the bowl in the gum baby's hands, and then he took a thin strand of webbing, put it at the back of the gum baby's head. So when he pulled on it, the gum baby would do this. And when he released it, the gum baby would do that. Well, he waited and he waited, and the aroma of the yam spread throughout the forest. And sure enough, Jasna, the fairy that no man can see, smelled it. She said, ooh, that smells yummy. Oh, it smells very yummy. And so she followed her nose. See, Toucan got that from her. She followed her nose until she saw the gum baby with the great big bowl of yams. She said, hello, gum baby, how are you today? The gum baby did not answer. Gum baby, I was talking to you, but could I have some of your yams? And Anansi pulled on the web string and then let it go. And Jasna took that for yes. And she went to eat some of the yams. But they tasted so good, she couldn't stop herself. And before she knew it, she was eating all the yams. She said, oh, gum baby, those yams were so good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I didn't mean to eat all of them. Will you forgive me? But the gum baby didn't say anything. Gum baby, I'm talking to you. But the gum baby didn't say anything. It couldn't. It was a gum baby, not a dumb baby. Who said that? So she said, gum baby, you're being rude. I am your elder. You must answer me. Do you hear me? But the gum baby still didn't say anything. So she took her hand and she smacked the gum baby. Don't do that at home. She was a trained professional and her hand got stuck. She was furious and she smacked it again and her hand got stuck. She said, if you don't let me go, I'm going to kick you. And she did. And now her hands and her legs were stuck on the gum baby. Susan, I told the others, now I'm telling you, it's not a dumb baby. It's a gum baby. That's why I couldn't answer her. So Anansi said, ha, 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 now I got you ready for Inyame. I have you ready for Baden-Yame, the sky god. Meanwhile, up in the sky, Baden was just laughing. I'll never see that pesky Shola again. What's this? What are you doing here? And so Shola Anansi said, I have completed the task. And he showed him Rojan, the leopard, with the terrible bite. And he showed him the heat-filled hornets with the stings like fire. And last but not least, he produced the gum baby that was moving back and forth because the invisible Jasna was making it move, but because he was a spy god, he was no mere mortal man. He could see her. He said, oh, hey, how you doing? She said, I'm stuck. Get me unstuck. Get me unstuck, please. Baden-Yame shook his head, but being the sky god that he was, he kept his word. He snapped his fingers. I can't snap. Would everyone snap their fingers once? Just once, Baden. Snap your fingers once. These are your fingers. Okay, see? Youngin. Okay, anyhow, he snapped his fingers, and so Rojan, the leopard with a terrible bite, disappeared and went back down to earth. The heat-filled hornets were freed from their container, and they went back to earth. And Jasna, the fairy that no man could see, danced herself all the way back down to the earth. And Baden-Yame kept his word and gave Shola Anansi a box full of stories that looked nothing like this and bade him well, pun intended, and he went back to earth. Now, when Shola got back down to the earth, he said, I could charge a lot of money for these stories. I could become a very, very rich man. But then he remembered how miserable he was when the stories were only available when Baden-Yame made them available. And he did something very rare for Shola Anansi. He opened up the box, which looked nothing like this, and he let all the stories out. And the stories flew through the four corners of a round earth. And there the stories begat other stories, which begat other stories, which begat, you get it. And the stories morphed into songs and dance and raps and musical instruments and poetry and spoken word and stories. At the end of the day, the box, which looks nothing like this, was totally empty. And to this day, all the stories in the world belong to all the cultures in the world. And there's a rumor that these stories and their tellers will soon be meeting in the mythical land of Marrakesh in Morocco. That is my story. I hope I told it well. Asante.
That was fabulous. Fabulous. Baba C, thank you so much for that. Amazing story. A great version. And great to know where the stories of the world came from and who was involved. Anybody else got something to say about that? I can see Solar just like rubbing his face, and please join us in this conversation.
I just have one question. Did anybody know who Rojan the leopard was representing?
Rojan? Is John
John the Roe, yes.
John Rowe.
John Roe was Rojan. I was trying to mix it up a little bit. Okay.
I didn't get it till just then. All
right, I was carrying on until Sholar and that bad end Prince showed up. So now I'm going to attempt to be quiet, and I surrender the floor. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the story. See you in Marrakesh.
Oh dear gosh. Baba C, you're so funny in your storytelling, It just creases me up.
We have two choices every day, to be sad or to be happy. I choose to be happy and do those things that reflect that. Thank you for it. Asante Sana. Thank you very much.
So I did send a message to Baba C and to Solar and to Baden earlier on saying, how would you like to run it? Do you want to run this yourselves? And I'll just back out and leave you to, although we might have to come in a referee from time to time, I
think you can, Shola and I are pretty cool. You may have to keep an eye on Baden, and he may not have, what do you call it? Audio, which might not be a bad thing.
Oh, he has his hand up.
Gary, don't leave me here alone with these two reprobates, okay? My reputation is already in tatters.
It's all right, Baden. We're here as well. We'll look after you.
Yeah.
Thank you. The
Baden,
good name that I've worked so hard to create.
Baden has a reputation.
I think if your reputation is in tatters, looking back across the last 12 months or so, is probably of your own doing. I don't.
It's two, Gary, accordingly. It's two.
But listen, I'm very happy to sit back and let you guys run this bit. I think you were talking about having like a meeting of the griots or something at some point, yes. And this might be a chance to have a little taster at that, and then you can have your own, run your own session at some point. I don't know. Run this session by all means do, but please, for those of us that don't know, tell us what griots are. Somebody.
Allow me, please, as the elder. Sometimes it's good to be the elder. The griot is usually a position that it's inherited. In Africa, in the many societies of Africa, if I was a griot, my father was a griot, his father before him was a griot, and so on and so on. All griots are storytellers, but not all storytellers are griots. For a storyteller can tell a story to entertain, and there's nothing wrong with that, because we all love being entertained. We all have our favorite songs or dance or movies or television show or poem or storyteller, and that's fine. But the griot is charged with teaching through the stories that he or she may tell. And since I'm a male, I'm going to stick with he for now, but I'm not ignoring the she's. So the griot teaches about how the sun and moon, why the sun and the moon live in the sky, why children should listen to their elders, why elders should listen to children because you're never too old to learn. They teach what they used to call morals, but we now call life lessons. They are advisors, and they're supposed to be wise. Baden, they're supposed to be wise. However, they also, in traditional Africa, are advisors to the Oba, advisors to the king. And they're charged with always telling truth. So if the king asks a question, doesn't like the answer, he by tradition is forbidden to harm the griot. And usually the griot, the community takes care of him. So he is never in want of food, clothing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that in essence is what a griot is. Sholar and Baden, if you want to add to that, by all means. Did they freeze?
Okay. I think that's a really succinct and clear answer. The thing I would add to it is that the tradition of the griot is a tradition that is expansive throughout Africa, but they're not all called griots. Griot is a specific language terminology, but they're called different things in different places. But in essence, what Babasi described is actually how it is all over Africa.
Another griot here in DC calls himself Jolly, which is another name for griot. Oh, one little thing, griot or griot, there's an argument going on. I don't know why people argue over that, tomato. Griot is not French. If you look up the storyteller in a French dictionary, it will not say griot. But because griot comes from the Kiswahili, which is a trade language, people take liberties with it. But in most African languages, if a letter's there, it's meant to be pronounced Griot, griot, although some people say griot.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that explanation, and you're absolutely right. So that was very succinct. And
can I add the musical side of that, because the wonderful musicians as well. Sorry to stick my nose in at this moment.
No, John Rowe, that was apropos, because most griots play either the kora or another musical instrument, or they play the drums. Here in the States, they played the banjo, which is the only instrument indigenous to the Americas after they became the Americas that was created by slaves, trying to replicate the musical instruments in their various societies. So yes, they do play instruments, and a lot of them sing. You don't want to hear me sing.
Yeah, the griots that I know, djembe singers and dance, djembe players, singers and dancers from Senegal. But no, that's great. Thank you very much. And I know, Sully, you play the djembe as well, do you not, as part of your telling?
I do, yeah. But I mean, the other day somebody was calling me a master drummer, and I'm not by any stretch of the imagination a master drummer. I just enjoy the sound of the drum beat. And I'm not either an actual traditional lineage griot or jelly or laki. I'm somebody who, although my family were speakers, so I do come from a lineage of speakers, but not specifically storytellers. But I just love storytellers, so I made that decision to become one myself.
And thank goodness.
Wait, he said he's not a master drummer. I have yet to meet a master drummer who admits to being a master drummer. And you're right about the heredity thing. I'm at least a third generation storyteller on my father's side.
I never heard a story till I was 30, not being told anyway. So I'm wiped out of any of that lineage business. But anyway, I'm going to hand it over to you guys. So that was great. Thanks for Baden, are you about to say something there?
I'm gonna, I've been out all afternoon. I went to see my grandson play rugby. So I've been out in the cold, and then we all went for a meal afterwards with my son and my grandchildren, who I haven't seen since well before Christmas. So I'm a little bit kind of head in one place here. I understand there were quite a few people here tonight as well who'd like to tell along with us. So if the other two griots, storytellers, don't have any objection, I'd quite like to say, yeah, we'd be happy to share the session with others who put their names forward. Is that okay, guys? Yeah.
Hey, I'm more than willing to share it with Sholar and Baden.
Oh,
no, you're talking about.
I would say absolutely. Yeah.
He knows he's being troublesome.
I'm never troublesome.
So shall one of us go next? I wouldn't mind kind of getting mine.
Yeah, please do, Baden. And then you can, if you need to slip off, then you can slip off, because you obviously had a long day.
Yeah, okay, I'll stick around. But I think while I've still got some energy, I'd like to get a story again. And the story I'm going to tell is
Adrian,
actually a true story. Yeah.
I'm actually not averse to Gary continuing in the role that he's taken thus far. I actually feel that you should continue, but I mean, I don't know what you feel, Baden and Babasi.
I'm happy to go along with that.
Yeah.
Me too. That's fine. That's cool. Thank you. Baden,
The more the
floor
merrier.
is yours.
Okay.
Actually, it probably is going to take a person not of the trio to keep this moving, because I think Baden is procrastinating while he makes up his mind what story he's going to tell.
It's with you.
And for anybody who doesn't know, Baden and I do this back and forth. We love each other like brothers, and I don't like my brothers. I mean, we love each other like brothers, and I love my brothers.
In fact, along with the story that I'm going to tell, I have a selection of poems here, which I'd like to read to you. No, I'm not. I'm going to tell you a true story. And this story is called An Interview with God. And I'd like to start by asking by a show of hands, whether anyone here can say truthfully that they have ever met God. Okay, I'm gonna ask that question again, and I'm gonna add a slight qualification. Can anyone here say that they met God when they weren't under the influence of either alcohol or Class A narcotics? Let's see what that does to the show of hands. Okay, right. So
We notice you're not raising your hand.
I'm possibly not. Well, I'm telling the story. So I can say that I actually have met God. And the story I'm about to tell you is the proof of that fact. It happened some years ago when I'd decided that I was going to become a writer. And in the process, I actually gave up a perfectly reasonable full-time job with regular earnings and decided to go freelance. And it was arguably one of the worst decisions I've ever taken. And I have a long and outstanding tradition of taking really poor decisions, because although I knew I was possessed of an outstanding literary talent, I mean, there's no question of that. You don't even have to ask me whether that's true. Unfortunately, the publishing world was a little bit slow to recognize, shall I say, the emergence of this literary colossus. And within about 5 or 6 months, I found myself having to subsist on a diet of mostly water, bread, and I discovered what gruel is during this period of time. It's not nice. It's not at all pleasant. And it got to the point where I had to find something to do to actually keep the roof over my head and stop myself from starving to death, which is how I got involved in the wonderful work of market research, in fact, socioeconomic research, which basically meant going out and harassing people going about their ordinary everyday business, sometimes actually invading their homes and bombarding them with more or less meaningful or meaningless questions in an attempt to make a living. And this is how I found myself one day walking the streets of Dulwich in South London. Now, the more astute amongst you immediately will spot the bad karma in the name of that place, because Dulwich consists of 2 negative words, dull and itch. And you know, no good can come of either living or being in a place with such a name. I'd done everything in my power to put off going. I got up in the morning, I'd rearranged various piles of paper and shuffled them around and reorganized the sizes. I'd done 2, 3, possibly 4 loads of laundry, hung them out to dry. I'd done the week's washing up, dried the dishes, put them away, the cutlery. I'd hoovered the flat from top to bottom, side to side, left to right, north to south. But finally, even a master procrastinator such as I had run out of things to do. And I ended up having to saddle up the laptop, pick up my rucksack, and head off to the streets of Dulwich. I pulled up in a street, and on one side was a neat row of houses, and on the other was a low-lying housing estate, what in America you'd call a housing project. Not a particularly salubrious place to go normally. Needless to say, my potential constituents weren't going to be found amongst the well-heeled people living in the neat row of Edwardian houses on the right-hand side, but in the housing estate on the left. And speaking of those houses, I actually composed a little ditty about it. Neat little houses in neat little rows with neat little hedges and neat little doors. Neat little windows with curtains and blinds, and behind them, neat little people with neat little minds. I got the laptop out, got out my rucksack, and headed off towards the estate. And here I got the first surprise of the afternoon. It was actually quite well maintained. The grounds were landscaped and manicured and showed signs of civic pride, flower beds and planters full of flowers and other greenery. And a group of children were running around completely unsupervised, playing some game of their own imagining. Not a single dismembered animal or discarded syringe or used condom anywhere in sight. No graffiti, no broken glass. I climbed the stairs to the first level, noting with astonishment the absence of the smell of urine and the total absence in any dark corner of a pile of feces or a rotting corpse. I thought, you know what, this afternoon may not be so bad after all. As I'd been trained to do, I climbed to the top floor, walked to the furthest building at the end, and I knocked on the door. God answered. Now, he wasn't, to be honest, my idea of God. And if I put it to you, he probably wasn't anybody here's idea of God. He was probably in his late 30s, maybe early 40s, slightly unkempt, a little bit unshaven, roomy eyes, sort of a slightly vacant gaze, hands, fingernails cracked and dirty. He was drinking tea from a cracked, stained mug. Strong tea, the color of mud. But his unfocused eyes told me that he'd probably been drinking something a lot stronger than tea. And he didn't reveal his identity straight away. Having opened the door, I launched straight into my spiel. Hi, I'm Baden. I'm from None Such Social and Economic Research Agency, and I'm going to do you the biggest favor of your life by taking up 2 hours of your time asking you a lengthy string of meaningless questions. And you're going to help me to earn a few pence in the process. In my head, I'd already closed the laptop, zipped up the bag, turned, and started walking away when he answered. Sure, he said, come in. He actually had a very pleasant voice, sort of soft, clearly articulated, and a slight tinge of an Irish accent. I followed him inside into a small, dark flat in the middle of a summer's afternoon. The curtains were drawn. And in the one room that we went into, there was a fire on the wall, an electric fire on full blast. He was obviously a smoker, a heavy smoker. The air was thick with the scent of stale cigarette smoke. I'm asthmatic, and these conditions were not ideal conditions for an asthmatic by any stretch of the imagination. But I took a deep breath, probably not, again, the best decision I've ever taken, given the conditions. Opened the laptop, sat down, and we started. As I said, he didn't reveal his identity straight away. I think we'd got about maybe 40 minutes into the interview before he chose to tell me who he was. I think the question that triggered it was something to do with financial institutions, and it went something like, in your opinion, do you think that non-traditional providers of financial services, i.e. high street supermarkets and stores, can provide a service which is comparable, i.e. at least as good as that, provided by traditional providers of financial services, i.e. banks, insurance companies, and building societies, etc., or not? He didn't answer me. He stared back at me blankly, the way most of you are doing right now. I took another deep breath and prepared to ask the question again, at which point he dropped the bombshell. Leaning forward, he murmured confidentially, quietly. Actually, he said, I'm God. Now, this presented me with a little bit of a dilemma. Now, what was I to do with that piece of information? I couldn't pretend that I hadn't heard what he'd said. Did I acknowledge what he, when I say he with a capital H, had just told me? And at the back of my mind, there was a slightly nagging thought, which isn't something bad supposed to happen to you when you meet your maker. This is not meant to be a good thing. While I was trying to wrestle with this bit of information and decide what to do, I looked him squarely in the eyes, and I thought the best thing to do is to acknowledge him without verbally acknowledging him. So I nodded, as if admitting and acknowledging that I was indeed in the presence of the Creator. He seemed to accept that, and in turn nodded at me and smiled, acknowledging my acknowledgement of him as the supreme being. At that point, I decided to get on with the rest of the questionnaire and get the interview over and done with as quickly as possible. And then the strangest thing happened. My heart became very aware of my heart hammering in my chest. My breathing became short, rapid, and shallow. And an awful thought came to the forefront of my mind. This is what it means to meet your maker. And at that moment, I actually thought I was going to die. No, I thought, it's not meant to end like this. Absolutely no way. Come on, for sake. Another little voice, the voice of the angel on my left shoulder, tapped me and said, "Oi, that's no way to talk in the presence of the Almighty." Are you kidding? I thought, I'm here about to suffocate, about to die, have a heart attack and keel over. And you're lecturing me about the niceties of polite conversation. Are you out of your mind? Take it easy, said the angel on my other shoulder. You're not dying. It's just your asthma playing up. What with the bad air and the overheated room? That's all it is. Just calm down. You'll be all right. Get on with it. With that, I took a deep breath. Again, probably not the best thing I could have done under the circumstances. And I rattled through the remainder of those questions in record time. Before you could say lunacy, madness, and God knows what else is going on in here, I was done. I'd folded up the laptop, I was thanking him, and I was at the door walking out backwards, making sure to keep him in full view with every step. And then the weirdest thing happened. You thought what had gone before was weird. Then the weirdest thing happened. You must get paid a lot of money for doing this, he said, as we stood at the door and I was preparing to say my goodbyes. In my head, I thought, not nearly enough for this. S-H-I-T, I thought. But aloud, I said, well, it's okay. It's not great, but, you know, it allows me to do what I really want to do. Oh, and what's that? He said. Ah, well, I said, I'm a writer. I'm, you know, nothing famous or anything like that, you know. Lean towards me with those roomy eyes and with that soft voice. He said, you want something, he said. You pray for it. And you'll get it. And with that, I thanked him. And I was gone. So when that day comes, and it will, when you see my name up there in print, because I've won the, I don't know, the Pinter Prize, the Booker Prize, the Nobel Prize for Literature, there are a lot of people who are going to be walking around saying, him, Baden Prince, that chancer, that spinner of tales, that lying so-and-so. I know him. How on earth did he win the prize for the best novelist, short story writer, or whatever? But I'm telling you, since that day, I've been on my knees, praying like a Trojan. So when that day comes, never mind what all those others are going to have to say. You and I will know the truth, and you'll know it's the truth because you heard it right here. Thank you for listening.
Wow, that was fabulous, Baden. I mean, what an experience meeting God like that. And I actually missed it. I've forgotten where it was, but anyway, meeting him like that and having those moments with him in that. Yeah. When your books are finally, you win that prize and your books are out there, we will all know. We'll all know.
Well, I'll know it's time to stop drinking. Baden. So have you cut back the drinking much since meeting God?
Actually, that afternoon was the day I started.
So Shola, when you and I retire, he will win a prize for his writing.
Yeah, that was.
Uh-oh. I wouldn't
I
want to say
started
that
drinking
since I have
seriously.
no intention to retire.
That's why I said
Yeah.
it. But Baden, that was a story well told.
Yeah.
That's the second truthful story you've told.
Yeah.
I still remember the Jackson story.
Oh. Okay, now we're in slightly different territory here. Well, point taken.
Yeah, but it was also just as truthful.
Yeah, that was the whole truth and everything but the truth.
But the truth.
Now that was great, Baden. I've never met God myself, but I did meet King Arthur at a rally in London, which was it was against the criminal justice bill, and he was in we were all in a big park gathered, and you know, everything was peaceful, and we were just waiting to listen to Tony Benn speak or something like that, and he rammed a staff into the ground, and 10 minutes later there was the riot police were there, and it just went to hell. So I don't know the significance of that, other than when you meet these huge you know, characters, things can happen. So anyway, that's great, Baden, thank you for that. I'd just like to say that Liz has joined us in the room. Liz Weir, how wonderful to see you here. We'll come to you later on if that's okay. We are, I don't know how far we are through the program. We're about to have a story from Sola, I believe, and then we're going to go and visit one of the riads, and I'm not sure whether it's the actual storytelling cafe itself or another riad, but that's coming up after Sola, and then we'll have some more stories. So enough from me. Sola, please, the floor is yours, and may you be uninterrupted by the other two.
Sure. I think it's very unlikely that will happen, but I'll try my best. John Rowe, the last time I was on, did I tell the story of Mai the Moor?
Do I look like I've got a memory cell? Whether you did or not, it's always worth hearing a story again.
All right, okay. I'd like to tell this story because actually, with what you were just saying about King Arthur, it falls within the same period of time as when that Arthurian cycle was very popular in Western Europe, particularly France and the UK. And there was another epic written by a man called Wolfram von Essenbach, and it was called the Epic of Parsifal. Now, Parsifal in this story was the knight that found the Holy Grail. And Parsifal had a father called Garumet. Garumet went to North Africa, and he met a queen who in the book is called Belikane. They had a child who was Parsifal's older brother, because then Garumet left Belikane and came to Europe, and then the Epic of Parsifal is told. Now, when I was told this story, I was struck by the fact that the brother, who in the story is known as Fielfis, is mentioned, but that's it until he meets Parsifal many years later when they fight, as they meet each other. But it occurred to me that this story, this unknown story, was a story that needed to be told. And so I decided to write the story, and that's what I'm going to tell you. It's a very long story, it's an epic. However, I'm going to pare it and crunch it so that it fits into maybe 15 minutes or so. So I'll begin. Baba C likes to say long, and I like to say in a place far from here. So when I say in a place far from here, you can unmute, and I invite you to say, but near to there. So, in a place far from here,
but near
to
there.
there.
I said, in a place far from here.
But near to there.
Near to there.
Yeah.
to there.
Absolutely. In a place far from here.
Near.
Near.
Near to there.
Near to there.
Near to there.
In the age of the religions of the sword, the clash between Christianity and Islam, a time of tumultuous disruption in many parts of the earth. My Baraka, the Moor, was born. He was a scion of the Sefua dynasty of Kanem, a lineage that through Belikane was said to reach right back to Sargon the Great, the founder of the Akkadian Empire, and also to be of mystical origin. Through his father Garumet, he was related to the counts of Anjou, also to the Merovingians who at the fall of the Roman Empire ruled most of Europe. My childhood was a happy childhood, even though his father had left him and gone somewhere that I did not know. He did not lack for a father, for his uncle Ogu was his surrogate and treated him like the best thing. My loved to watch Uncle Ogu, who was an Ife blacksmith, forging and wielding a mighty hammer with almost delicate precision, while surrounded by a red forge-like glow. Mai learned the wisdom of his ancestors. And one day, sitting with his mother, who pointed at Mars and said, "That is your planet, my son, for your life is going to be a life of war. But remember this, do not hate. Compassion is your superpower." And Maya repeated that, don't hate. Compassion is your superpower. And I'm inevitably going to ask you to repeat this too. So if you will unmute and let's say together, don't hate. Compassion is your superpower. So
Don't hate.
don't
Compassion is
your
your
superpower.
your superpower. Excellent. And I'm going to call upon you to say that a few times. And I want you to say it very seriously. So no smiles, Mike. You can smile all you like. So, Mai, growing up with this litany going on in his mind, was also one of the most loving people that you could ever meet. Everybody loved him, and he loved everybody. He learned to play the kora and the flutes. He learned astronomy. He learned how to hunt. He learned how to fight. He learned the arts of war in a playful way, taught by his father and his mentor, Uncle Ogu. Everything was sweet. Belikane was one of the most intelligent women in that region and was widely respected as a queen, and therefore Mai also was affected by that same respect. But when Mai was 9, everything changed. You see, a courtier of the Sefua dynasty, a man known as Lord Sumare, was highly jealous of the Sefua and longed, lusted even, to rule, and so spoke to a mixed bag of mercenaries, and on one dark, moonless night opened the back door that led from the tunnel that led from the castle, and allowed the mercenaries in. Great was the slaughter that night, as they killed the Sefua dynasty people sleeping in their beds. What happened to the women? Decency does not permit me to say. But it is a sad and gruesome fact of war that men seem to lose their humanity and to perpetrate upon weaker people acts that seem evil and insane. Mai was forced to watch as his mother was violated by a man covered in tattoos, strange tattoos that seemed to almost form an inky black aura around his body. And these tattoos seemed somehow to weaken people who looked at them. But Mai's mother, though she was violated, kept her eyes focused on Mai's, said, Mai, look into my eyes. Mai, don't hate. Remember, compassion is your superpower. What did she say?
Don't hate. Compassion is your
superpower.
Exactly. And Mai looked and looked and looked in his mother's eyes, looking in his mother's eyes like his life would end if he looked away. He could not look away. He had no option but to stare into his mother's eyes, and so stare he did until, with a cruel thrust, that tattooed monster ended her life. And Mai did not remember anything else except being carried, slung over the back of a camel, and taken to a far-flung outpost of the Ghana Empire. Not the Ghana of today, but the Ghana of yesteryear, in the region that is now occupied by northern Nigeria, Chad, and areas like that. And at that place became a fighting slave in the pits known as the moor underneath the ground within the mine. And his litany changed from an affirmation of don't hate, compassion is your superpower, to kill the tattooed man. Escape from this place. Maria, take care. Thank you for being here, and see you soon. And changed to kill the tattooed man. Escape from this place. That became his litany. Hatred was in his very bones. Revenge was in his soul. Oh, Mai lusted to kill this man. The first day Mai was introduced to the moor, the fighting pits, the giant overseer Al Farouk strode around the arena saying, today we fight, today we die, today we step into eternity. And the crowd responded, today we die, today we fight, today we step into eternity. And Al Farouk looked at Mai and the others, the other boys, and said, you will fight. You may die, you may live. But whether or not you live or die, you will fight. And if you do not, they will kill you. And he pointed to some Askaris with sharp spears. And Mai had a choice. He didn't want to kill the boy facing him. He didn't want to fight the boy facing him. But he did want to get revenge. And he did want to kill the tattooed monster. And the only way that could ever happen is if he stayed alive. So he did. He fought that boy and he killed that boy and he killed many others in his time in the moor. Until his 16th year, when he fought a Viking young man called Sigmund Fireaxe. And their fight was long and brutal. And though Mai did win, he was rendered unconscious from blood loss. And as he lay there unconscious, he saw a pair of golden eyes approaching him. And he looked and saw that the eyes belonged to a gargantuan lion walking towards him. And Mai backed away and woke up and found himself on a table with a dark black man in a white robe and an assistant standing over him, hands poised and reaching down into Mai's chest. And Mai felt a warm glow of energy and fell back into unconsciousness. And the eyes became closer and the lion possessing the eyes walked forward. And Mai began to back away and back away and back away, and then woke up. And he was sitting up on the table, looking around in confusion. And the man spoke. He said, "My name is Dame. I am a healer from the gorge of Kariba, where the holy ones live. And I followed the prophecy here to this place at this time, for it is written that a man of mixed blood will one day change the world, and he will be found in the mine of Mosima. That, young man, is you. We will escape together." Mai laughed. He said, "Escape from this place? Do you know how many times I have tried to escape here? The walls are too thick. There are guards everywhere. It is impossible to escape. I'm sorry, old father, but I have to say it's not possible." "Don't worry, Mai. Go back to sleep." And Mai fell back asleep. And the lion approached again. And Mai this time turned round and ran and woke up. And when he woke up, he was standing in the room with Dame and the assistant whose name was Masina. And Dame was drawing a circle on the wall with his hand. So let's all do this. Just draw a circle, rotate your hand in a clockwise fashion. And whilst you're doing it, just take a deep breath in through your nose. And if you can, feel your core. Almost imagine that it is your core that is lifting your hand rather than the muscles of your arm. And this Dame did. And as he did this, a shimmering white circle appeared on the wall. And through it, Mai could perceive a forest. And Dame stepped through, followed by Masina and Mai. And Mai stepped into this wonderful forest. Now imagine if you had been underground, in a mine, fighting for your life, more or less every day, and suddenly found yourself in the wide expanse of a beautiful forest, hearing the bubbling waters of the stream, seeing the silvery waters, smelling the earth, the needles, the pine needles, and the sound of the birds. I think you would be amazed. Wouldn't you, Gary? You'd be amazed, right? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I can see that John is already amazed. So therefore, I know that amazement would definitely be the issue. And Mai, he couldn't speak. He almost couldn't think. He was overwhelmed. everywhere he looked was wonderful to him. And something softened in his heart slightly, just a slight shift. That night, he slept a deep sleep. And towards the end of his sleep, he saw the lion again. And the lion walked towards him and placed its gigantic paws on his shoulders, because he stood there. He stood there this time. He was determined not to run. And it placed its paws on his shoulders and then breathed a deep breath straight into his mouth and into his lungs. And Mai breathed that breath in and then woke up just in time to see the tattooed monster of his nightmares galloping towards him on a mighty horse, lance pointed towards his sternum. And Mai was able to move out of the way in time. And there ensued a mighty battle. Mai had been fighting more or less every day. The tattooed nightmare was augmented by some dark magic and was a peerless warrior. But Mai prevailed. And he stood over the tattooed monster with his spear ready to pierce that man's chest. And as he stood there, he remembered his mother, and he was overwhelmed with grief as this man lay unconscious beneath his feet. And he remembered what his mother always used to say, because his mother always used to say,
don't hate. Compassion is your superpower.
Absolutely,
Passion
Susan.
is your
Thank you.
superpower.
Yes, don't hate. Compassion is your superpower. And hearing that, overwhelmed by the emotion of the memory of what he had lost, that he had been suppressing for the past few years, he dropped the spear. And then with a mighty shout, flung his hands down and hit the sternum of the man below him. It was a shout, a chakra sound like, "He!" Can we all do that? Put your hands up. Yeah, after 3, let's all shout he, even though it won't sound like it's all after 3. So 1, 2, 3. He! And when he hit the sternum of this warrior below him, this monster below him, a strange thing happened. The inky tattoos began to rise from the man's skin and form a dark cloud around him that dissipated in the wind. And the man himself, he began to shrink and shrink and shrink, and his clothes became voluminous like blankets covering him. And he shrunk and he shrunk and he shrunk until, after some time, Mai removed the blanket-like clothing and saw, looking up at him, a tiny baby. And he picked up the baby and he rocked it, looking into its eyes and seeing only innocence. And his heart felt open. He glanced at Dame and saw Dame smiling, smiling, smiling. The end.
Super solar story.
Super story indeed. Thank you so much.
I was actually impressed. I like the way that you, because I'm usually very interactive and I've been scaling back over the Zoom, but I love the way that you rekindle being interactive via Zoom. So you've inspired me to resume That was a great story.
Yeah, beautifully told as well, Sola. Thank you. So much beautiful imagery and and a great epic. I'd like to hear the bigger tale, the bigger version sometime. That would be great. Did you say that was Arthurian?
Yeah, that's an Arthurian. That's from is that 14th century, isn't it?
Yeah, it's linked. It's linked. So the Epic of Parsifal is linked to that cycle of stories in which Arthur is mentioned. So Parsifal has his own epic, but he's also one of the knights of the Round Table in the, except there it's called Percival, as one of the knights of the Round Table, and it's linked because the story of Mai the Moor is actually the story of Parsifal's brother. But Parsifal is not the most important aspect of the story. The brother himself is the important aspect of it.
That's great.
I just put in here, sorry, I'm got to go. Thank you very much for the stories, everyone.
Thanks for being here.
But dinner is served. So I'll be here on Friday at 6 o'clock to tell some stories for children if you want to join in. But in the meantime, thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you, Donald.
Bye, Donald.
Good night.
Good night.
What a fantastic evening of stories we've had so far. And sadly, we lost Maria. She couldn't stick around either. So what I'm proposing to do is to move on to the next section, so we're not here all night, as much as we'd love to be, but people have got places to go and things to do. So for the first three storytellers of the evening, we thank you for that. That's been wonderful. I think we need to have a quick pop over to have a look at the Riyadh. If we can do that, Mike, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. That was great. Thanks to Baden, Babasi and Sola. That was absolutely wonderful. Loved it. So I just wanted a special thanks to Gary, really, at the end of this series for having the idea and for having the follow through to execute. I think, is this our 9th or 10th session? I'm not sure, but it's been an epic in its own right, really. And we've raised some money. We've had a lot of fun along the way. So thank you very much, Gary, and thanks Norman for the again for the idea and for the execution of the generously donating this Duncan Williamson book and the other books and contributing to the fundraiser in that way. So that's been fantastic. Now we have showcased 8 different Riyadhs during the series. And for each of them, we've had an owner or a member of the team who's talked about the style of hospitality they offer and given you a flavour for what to expect in Marrakesh. I've got to say, we've been extremely lucky that borders are opening on the 7th, which is going to allow us to start our festival on the 12th as planned. There is an amazing positive energy in Marrakesh at the moment. People are so excited to be welcoming tourists back. And I think, especially with that sort of half-term period and the influx of guests, I think it's going to be a really exciting time to be there. And I think it's going to be great that we can contribute, actually, that the Storytelling Festival will make a contribution to rebuilding. And we're talking to the press as well, and we're talking to other sort of stakeholders to try and get maximum visibility for the festival and build it in a way that hopefully will create a platform for future festivals to follow. So that's all good stuff. Now, it did seem appropriate to give you a peek at the centre itself. For those of you who are going, so you can see a little bit what to expect, and also for those of you who, for different reasons, won't be able to go this year or at the moment, just to let you have a look. Now, Ali is just starting to share his screen here. We're going to do it briefly through 3 short videos. The centre is absolutely full of builders at the moment, all working busily to get things finished. So, Ali, are you ready to share the first video?
Yes, I'm ready.
Excellent. Very good. So what we're going to show you with this one is a street scene, which Marrakesh is a medieval walled city, and the inside the old town, the streets are pedestrianised, as you can see. So you won't see any cars in there. John, you were there relatively recently. I think you can just see this is our centre here on the right. We've refurbished the whole of this wall with these wonderful handmade bricks and created that lovely archway there. And it's sitting in the middle of a museum district. So there are the Ben Youssef Madrasa is there, which is probably the #1 tourist attraction in Marrakesh. The Kuba Baruddin, which is the oldest building in Marrakesh, just around the corner. That's the washrooms from the original Ben Youssef Mosque. Yeah, if you can pause there for me, please. That's great. So that's the street scene. I don't know, John, would you like to come in and talk about the neighbourhood a bit?
Well, it's a fantastic neighbourhood. It just it's you get the feeling that you're in a cultural centre, but it's almost like a village. If you think of London as being made up, those of you that are in London, as being made up of a series of villages welded together, this is a neighbourhood. So there's things like Darbalage, which is all in that neighbourhood, which is a sort of big women's project, a cultural project. There's the Orientalist Museum, but it's not like it's the opposite of Kensington as a cultural area. It's kind of it's a cultural area that people live in. And you see the same beggars and the same street musicians on the corners each time. So and they appreciate any coin that you pass them, especially if you pass them regularly. But it's a lovely feeling. One of our venues is round the corner, which is the Herbalist. And I walked it. They invited me in and gave me mint tea, and I looked at it and I thought, you can sit 20 people in here. Let's have this as a venue. And and it's that kind of place where you can make and everything's all in a few hundred yards. It's fantastic where the cafe is. And if you were coming in from another city, sort of a Western city, if you like, it wouldn't even look like a cultural quarter. But once you get there, you realise this is a cultural centre.
Thanks, John. That's great. So, yeah, Ali, could you just play the video just forward a little bit for us?
Okay, sir.
So we're just going to jump upstairs to you see the arched windows there from the outside. The video is going to jump us up. I think we jump up 1 floor. Okay, and here you can see no, you can't see, yes you can see their arch. So you've got this wonderful plasterwork on the walls here. This is a space that we can use for performance. Keep going, please, Ali. On the right here, we've got can you stop there? Go back, please. Can we go back a bit, Ali, please? Thank you. So that, go forward a bit, please. And right, just stop there. That's great. So that piece of wood is on a hinge, and when it's up like that, we've got a light well that goes all the way down through the building in a very traditional way. You get sort of flow of air through in the summer. It's very cooling. And then we could also put that down, which makes it extends the performance space really. So it's the difference between, I don't know, accommodating about 20 people and accommodating maybe 25 or even 30 within that area. And then behind that, you can see the plugs there. We're going to have sort of television there for broadcasting performance, which is happening in other performance spaces within the centre, and also for allowing people to access our archive, because we've got this wonderful archive of stories from the nearly 2 years now of the cafe so far. So carry on, please, Ali. This is going into a little shower room and bathroom, because that space on the middle floor can also be used as an apartment for a storyteller in residence. And we're looking forward to welcoming a series of storytellers in residence. More on that later. Great, so if you can keep the video going. This is now, just pause there. This is now taking you up another floor to our principal performance space. And it's also the most sort of finished of these spaces and the easiest to see. So carry the video on, please, Ali. That's good. So that's where our technicians are going to sit here on this sort of area. And keep going, turn around. Stop, please, there. Now this is where our performer is going to stand. And the beauty, so on the wall, you've got this logo, which you'll recognize from the website. And this area is actually open air. So we've got the best of both worlds here. There's a retractable roof that will come out over the teller if it's either very hot and we want to shade from the sun, or even to protect you from rain, although it's relatively rare. But it's open, and it's got this wonderful wrought iron sort of trellis over it, which you can see the shadow of reflected on the wall there. So that's our principal performance space, which is open. And then if you start the video again, please. Okay, yeah. So again, this is a space which we can accommodate. I think, would you say up to about 30 people, John? I think you're muted.
Yeah, I think 30 comfortably. 50 if we sit on each other's shoulders.
But I think the other thing
I know, I think it's kind of illusionary, because I think it's bigger than it. You know, it's a bit of a TARDIS, the place.
Yeah. Well, but I think
30 realistic, and the great advantage is that if there's only 5 or 6 people in there, it'll still feel like an audience. If there's 30, it's packed out, and it'll feel like a really big audience. And we can always broadcast to other parts of the building anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So I think that's it. I mean, we have got we're a bit limited because of the, as I say, of the builders crawling over the building. But I'm also conscious that we've got limited time and lots of stories to tell tonight. But I hope that was helpful. Does it throw up any questions? No, great, fantastic. Yeah.
I saw a tiny little room as you were circulating around with a sort of bucket in it, which put me in mind of a cell. Will that have a lockable door? Because and am I right in thinking that that's where Baba C is going to be for most of the time that he's there, if we can coax him to go in?
I've got a quick question, Mike. Will that space that you just showed, will that be open to the general public as well?
Yes, yeah. So the centre will eventually be open to the public. So it will be a cafe, and there is in an area that we didn't show you on the ground floor. There's a bar which will be a juice bar, so it will be open to the public. And that street is actually, there's a lot of footfall along there. So we've got a photography museum just where you can see the people gathering in the street. There's a lot of footfall, so I think we'll get a good, when we get established. And we know this because we've got the experience of running Henna Cafe for 10 years. When we get established, we'll get a good footfall there and a good audience of
yeah, I think we should put John outside the front door in all his gear and just welcoming people to come upstairs, basically, because that'll do it.
I think that's a good idea. That's a very good idea. But the other thing we're going to use the centre for is as a resource for local schools too. So we'll have school groups coming in, and
fantastic.
we're reaching out. We're working with the British Council on that. So we're looking at sending our storytellers out into schools and also having school groups coming in. So it will be a resource, and we've got enough space there to do. We'll be able to do some sort of exhibitions of. We'll sort of, we need to work on thoughtfully sort of hanging it with photographs of images of Moroccan tellers and also tellers from other traditions, and there's a lot of potential for education in the space. So
what languages are you intending to feature?
So the indigenous language in our part of Morocco is Amazigh. So we will have telling in Amazigh or Berber, to use the politically incorrect description. We'll have telling in Darija, which is the Moroccan dialect. We'll have telling in a lot of telling in English, of course, and we'll have some telling in French as well.
Will there be interpreters?
There will, yeah. So our I mean, the festival is predominantly in English, but now I'm referring to I'm talking about how we see the centre on an ongoing basis. So our staff will be. I mean, most Moroccans speak at least 3 languages. So you know, translating is. I mean, it's normal. I mean, that's most Africans speak at least 2 languages, don't they? You know, so that's absolutely.
Yeah, I'm an American. I only speak 1 fluently. I'm working on correcting that. John Rowe, I used to be a town crier before I became a griot. So if I can be of assistance in that way, I'll be glad. And Baden, great minds think alike. And in this case, you were thinking like me. But I've seen that room and I was wondering, someone needs to put Baden in the corner. Click.
Right. Anyway, can I?
Wait, the second pun of the night. I think that's 2 puns too many.
I'm going to ask a serious question. Can people put in the chat whether they're anyone who's coming to Marrakesh? Because I've kind of lost control on who's coming and who's not. Anyone who's up on the screen at the moment who is actually coming, if you can just put coming next to your name, that would help me enormously while I've got you all here.
Okay, brilliant. And with that, I think we'll hand back to Gary. Thanks again, everybody. Look forward to seeing many of you in Marrakesh and the others hopefully online. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Mike Wood, one of my favorite people. Alas, he's no longer with us. His name was Michael Wood when I was much younger. I kept wondering why I kept staring at you and your name, but now I know. Good spirit. Thank you, sir.
Well, I just want to say how amazing it is, all the work that you're doing out there, Mike, on behalf of storytelling and, you know, promoting storytelling and, you know, getting people to come and learn about it. I mean, it's amazing. And the story cafe that's been running digitally for 2 years with John and Ali and yourself and Julio and everybody who's involved with that. What an incredible thing you've been doing here for the world, I think. You know, certainly the world of storytelling and that massive archive that we've built and between us all. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for that to all of you, because it's been tremendous. So where would we be? And then the festival, which is happening in 2 weeks, which I wasn't sure if I was going to come to or not, because we recently moved and I couldn't find my passport and I've been turning the house upside down. But yesterday I found it. So I'm coming. Yes. Okay, brilliant. I think we need to move on because we've still got some things to get through. Now, Liz needs to come up next, I think, because I think she has to be away from the space. So I just want to say Liz was due to be with us out there in Marrakesh, but you've had a bit of a year this year, Liz. You've come through it. Yeah, you've come through it. You're still going through it, I think. And unfortunately, because of what's been happening for you, you're not actually going to make it next week or the week after. We'll sadly miss you, but hopefully we'll see you at the following year. I'm going to give the floor over to you, Liz. Please be welcome.
Thanks very much. And Mike said I'll be welcome later in the year, which I really look forward to. I want to tell one of my favourite stories. It doesn't take very long, but it's a story I love. And as John would say, it doesn't matter if you've heard it before. If somebody sings Danny Boy, people don't say, we heard that one before. So here's the story. There was once a young fisherman who lived with his wife on an island off the coast of Ireland. They had a baby boy, and you'd think nobody had ever had a child before. That young man was so proud of his baby. He'd take him for walks, he'd feed him, he'd change him. This was years before young men did that sort of thing. He'd carry him down to the seashore and he'd say, when you're big, we're going to go fishing together. But if his wife heard him, she said, no son of mine's going fishing, too dangerous. And the baby would smile up at his father. The wife said it was just wind, but the young man knew the baby understood. When the child was some 6 months old, a message came that the young man's wife's father was ill. He had a fever. She had to go and look after him. She said, I can't go. I can't take the baby to a house with fever. And her husband said, what are you talking about? Sure, I'll look after him. Go to feed him, change him, take him for walks. The fishing season's nearly over. You go off and I'll mind him. And so away off she went with a happy enough heart, and the young man was as good as his word. But after 2 days, there was a knock at the door, and it was another young fisherman who said, are you coming out? It's about the last good day's fishing we'll get. No, I said, I can't share the baby. Sure, bring the baby with you. Is he sleeping? He is. How long will he sleep? Oh, another hour. Look, we'll go out for half an hour. Bring the baby. Oh, Mary will come. Bring the baby. Sure, he'll sleep through it. So they wrapped the sleeping baby in a blanket, set him in the boat, and rowed to the northern tip of the island. The young man said, we have a place for him, be safe. And they carried the baby up into a cave and set him up in a rock and built rocks round him. It's like a little nest. And away they went out for their half hour's fishing. And they were going grand and bringing in a good haul. And they turned to go back to that cave when all of a sudden the wind changed. The sea boiled up. And the two young men were fighting to keep the boat going and to get to that cave before the sea would wash over it. But suddenly a wave caught them and they were swept into the sea. The next thing the young fisherman knew, he was lying on a pier looking up into his wife's eyes, and she said, where's my baby? He could only shake his head. And she ignored him for 3 full days, and they waked that child for 3 days and 3 nights. And the storm lashed around them. When at last the wind dropped, and the sea was as calm as a mill pond, she turned and spoke to her husband for the first time. Find my baby, bring him home to me. And he stepped into that boat and rowed out across a surface that was as smooth as a mirror. Pulled up the boat and stepped into the cave, and there was a movement. His heart lifted, but when he looked, it was only a seal suckling her young. When he stepped forward to the rocky ledge and looked down, all that was there was a blanket, and he picked it up in his arms. How could he bring this back to her? But as he turned to come out of the cave, didn't the seal slip off the rock, leaving behind no seal pump, but the baby with the milk of the seal round its lips? The seal had suckled that child for the length of the storm. He wrapped his son in the blanket, set him in the boat, rowed back to the island, and reached up into his wife's arms, a happy, gurgling bundle of joy. And they say that if the wait lasted 3 days, the party and that child's return lasted a full week. And ever after that, no man on that island ever killed another seal. That's my story.
That has my seal of approval.
Oh, delighted to hear that.
That was great. What a beautiful story.
Awesome.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
Yeah.
One of my signature stories, I suppose you'd say.
Brilliant.
And do you mind if we shared that story at some time? Do you mind other people telling that story, passing it on?
Well, you'd have to make your own version of it, I presume. I don't like it when people just suck a story, spit it out again, you know. You'd have to do a bit of work on it, research on it. I've worked on it and researched it, and, you know, you'd work on it.
Of course. I
think it's really important, especially with signature stories, you know. When a storyteller works on a story, they work on it for quite a long time, you know, and the easiest thing in the world, and I think it's one of the things with Zoom, is to hear a story. I like that one, I'll have that one, boom, out you go again. And I just believe that one has to make one's own of the story, you know.
Of course, absolutely, and that's why I asked, if you were happy for people to do that. But I think it's a part of our craft. If you don't work on a story and make it your own in your own way, then you're just copying, aren't you? So, but it was a beautiful
Happens
story.
a lot.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does. And thank you for that one, Liz. And thank you for coming and joining us tonight and bringing.
Very welcome. It's lovely to be here, and I really long to be. You couldn't plan. I knew when I had these scans it would take 4 or 5 weeks to get the results, but you just couldn't have picked it. Be slap in the middle of the week, and the oncologist said I'm not allowed to go until I get my results. So hey, that's it.
Yeah.
Your health, your good health, is the best story we can hear. Health first.
Yeah.
See you after the part, Liz.
I am actually drawn to wonder what would have happened to the health of that husband if you didn't find the baby.
He couldn't go home.
Yeah.
I don't think we should be thinking about his fate had he not found that baby.
Ooh.
Yeah.
He'd wind up like Baden.
I think we all know the answer to that one.
So, Liz, I am hoping that we might set up a link from Marrakesh to you.
Great idea.
I'm just saying on top of my head right now because time zones, etc., etc.
No, we can do it. It's not. It's only an hour difference between Marrakesh and so.
Hop and a skip.
We're going to have so much hybrid stuff through the festival anyway.
Great.
So don't worry. There's
people are asking about that. They were asking, is there going to be a hybrid element to it? A lot of the American people are asking.
Yeah.
So we'll adjust
so we will have So I've got there'll be hybrid sort of story rounds. There'll be I've got a hybrid at the time when the Asian and Indian storytellers can come in, but that won't be that will be mainly on Zoom, but other people that are there can join in that. I'll leave that to the magic of Ali to make sure we can work it out. But we'll leave it to the magicians, the pilots of the flying carpets, and we'll get that hybrid stuff going. So you will be with us. You will be part of the festival, Liz, and then you will come out some other time and experience the cafe.
I have my flight, so I'm certainly going to use it at some stage.
Okay. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. We look forward to all of it, all of the festival. We're so excited for it. Talking about the people who are flying the magic carpets, I would just like to say to Ali, would it be possible we've got one more storyteller, and after that, could you share my screen, but not the one that I'm talking from, but the second screen that's up there, the one with my photograph on.
Okay, my friend, baby.
Whoa. Because that's where the Wheel of Fortune is, where we will be drawing the names for the hats at the very end after our final story, which is with Claire Goodall. Claire, I'm not sure I've heard you tell a story before. You usually play music, if I remember right.
I do a bit of both, and actually, because you mentioned earlier that the tradition that we're celebrating tonight as music, I thought I changed my story because I thought I'd like to put a story that's got a bit of music in.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Okay, this one is a story that everybody knows, and I've got some personal connection to it because after the war, my mother went with her parents to Hamelin, where they were stationed. And just after the war, Hamelin was an amazing place, and there were caves that had statues in it. So I've got quite a connection to this tale. And this was a time, and it's a long time ago now, probably in the 12th century, maybe in the 14th century, but nobody quite knows when. Hamelin was a wealthy town, but Hamelin had a rat problem. Hamelin had a rat problem like nobody's had a rat problem. Hamelin had a rat problem. It was more like the rats had a Hamelin problem. There were that many rats in Hamelin. They were everywhere. They were in the beds or in the baskets. They were if you opened anything, a basket, a door, a hole in the road, there'd be a rat looking at you. They were absolutely everywhere. They were eating the corn, they were eating the food, they were sleeping in the beds so that you couldn't get in a bed because it was full of rats. And the people of Hamelin were well to do. They were well-to-do and they weren't used to having to deal with rats. And they called a meeting. They said to the mayor, what are you going to do? This house, this village, this everything is full of rats. From the top of the hill down to the river at the bottom, there are rats. And the mayor says, we've tried everything. We've tried absolutely everything. And a voice came from the back of the meeting that said, well, you haven't tried me. And they all turned round in the back of the hall where the meeting was. There was a man dressed in pied clothing. And these days, people don't know what pied means. Pied is when it's all different colours. And at the time of this story, that was not a good thing. Because if you were rich, you made it so that you had solid colours. You might be showing off fabrics, but you didn't have lots of them. You didn't have clothes made up of the rags that everyone else had got rid of. Pied meant you were poor. Pied meant that you weren't part of Hamlin. It meant you were a stranger, and nobody likes strangers. But these were desperate people. And they said, what can you do? And he said, well, I can get rid of your rat problem. I can get rid of your rat problem, but it will cost you 1,000 guilders. It'll cost you that much. And the people of Hamlin looked at each other. That was a lot of money, but there were rats everywhere. What could they do? This was a stranger. He could leave anytime. They couldn't. They had all their money, their crops, their lands invested in this town. They couldn't go, and the rats weren't going. So they said, yeah, we'll pay you 1,000 guilder on the condition you get rid of every single rat. And the piper picked up his pipe and he said, okay. And he started to play. And the rats, hearing the music, started to dance. They couldn't stop themselves. The people of Hamlin found the music appealing, but they could stop themselves. But the rats started dancing after the piper as he went down from the top of the hill, all through the winding road playing, and more rats came out of every building, more rats came out dancing. They couldn't stop themselves. They danced as they followed the piper into the river at the bottom of the hill. They followed him in, and they danced in the water because they couldn't stop themselves. They danced and they danced until they all drowned. And there wasn't a single rat left in the whole of Hamlin. So the piper turned to them and he said, well, my 1,000 guilders, my 100 guilders, if you please. And the people of Hamlin looked at their rat-free town and thought, you know, now there aren't rats. That's a lot of money. And now we talk about it, you're a stranger here. You're a stranger. How do we know you didn't send the rats? How do we know it wasn't you? You sent them. You sent them so you could cheat us of money. You sent them. And we're not paying you. And in fact, you're a stranger here. I bet you're a criminal. I bet you're a criminal elsewhere. I think if we asked around, we'll find someone who wants you in prison. And you better get out of here. You better get out of here fast. This wasn't the first time people had thought the Pied Piper was a criminal. He was poor. He wore pied clothing. He could only afford clothes that made out of the rags that other people threw away. So he said, okay, I'm not going to make you do anything. I can't make you do anything, but I'm not leaving without the payment. I'm not leaving empty-handed. And if you won't give me what you promised, I'll take something else instead. And he picked up his pipe and he started to play. And this time, the people of Hamelin found that they couldn't resist the pipe. It was slow, it was saintly, it was seductive. And the parents found that they were kept in place, that the children could move, and they moved towards the piper. They moved towards the piper as he went down from the river at the bottom and started walking up the hill. And the parents tried to reach out to their children as they passed by, but they couldn't grab them. They couldn't move as they went further and further away up the hill. Now, I've not been to Hamelin, but my mother has, and she says there's a cave at the top of the hill of Hamelin, and it's that cave that the piper went into. It's that cave that the piper went into, followed by every child in Hamelin, because he wasn't going to leave without something, and they'd refused his proper payment. And that's my story.
Whoa, colossal Claire tale. All right.
Fantastic. And there's a Transylvanian, the Romanian Transylvanian tale, which is exactly the same, except they come out of a cave. The children arrive in a cave because there's a population from Saxony in Transylvania. And that's a folk explanation of how the people from Saxony got there.
That's interesting.
Just
interesting.
sort of amazingly told, Claire.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, very nice version.
Whoa.
And a very dark tale as well, I think.
A very, very dark tale.
Yeah. Yeah, nice with the music in it as well. So
yeah, I'm using a bit of live looping to do the.
I thought you were. I got the feeling there was something loopy going on there. That's for sure.
Claire, you've given me something else to learn to do. So thank you.
I think we need to draw this session to its end, partly because people have got things to do and places to go, but also because I can smell tonight's tea cooking. And I'm ravenous because I haven't eaten since 11 o'clock this morning. So you can, a very long time ago, Babsy, a long time ago. So I did get a little message from Ali to say that I could share my screen. So thank you for that, Ali. I didn't see where the message was, but I give you a thumbs up to say thanks for doing that. Just remind me, Norman, are there 3 books that you are giving away?
There's 4.
4 books. 4 books from Norman.
1 is the main prize, Duncan, and 3 others.
So would you like us to do Duncan's book first or last?
Have it first, because anybody whose name's taken off then loses the opportunity for a chance for the other books.
No, they don't. Not if they put the name. If they've donated more than once, the name is put in every time that they donated.
It's traditional to do the main prize
first. Well, then I wouldn't want to be one to take away from tradition. So let's have a little look at that. I think, does it look like Liz has left the room? So thank you, Liz. Thank you for coming and sharing your story. Thank you to Sola for sharing his story. Thank you to Baden for his story, to Babasi for his story, and to Claire for your story, and for anybody who came along who thought they might tell a story that didn't get a chance. Sorry, but it has been a great evening besides. And so if I can I can share my screen now. I believe I have to do this bit first.
Gary, can I just add something before we get into the draw? There was another book which Seth donated.
Oh yes, that's what I was going to say. Seth has got one. So there's 4 from Norman and 1 from Seth. So if we do the Norman's books first and then go to Seth's book. Yep.
Sounds like
Okay.
a plan.
Right. So I'm hoping that this will work. Aha! There it is. So, and again, I'm hoping it'll work. When I tap the screen, the wheel should spin and then it should stop randomly on somebody's name. And I hope that this works. Let's see.
Is my name on it? If it is, it needs to be taken off.
It was, but I took it off.
Thanks.
Oh, and Keith has left the room, but Keith Butters is the winner of the first book. So I'm sure he'd be delighted.
Keith. Okay, then that's great. Keith.
I
Is
don't
that
think
how you
Keith-
spell his name?
Keith Butters, yeah.
Yeah.
Butters, I believe.
That's Butters, okay.
Yep, just there. There it is. And so yeah,
I can get you his address, Norman.
Yeah, we'll take care of that later.
Or maybe bring it to Marrakesh and we'll post it from Britain, which will save a lot of postage.
I think that might be a good idea. I'm used to carrying a lot of weight. Okay.
So, nope, too easy.
That was brilliant.
Oh, that was easy. That was fast.
That was the first name. Now, when
see.
I cleared his name, just as I pressed clear, I'm not sure if it said remove all instances of somebody's name. So if that happens, I'll have to type somebody's name back in. I don't think Keith had more than one entry. Okay, so here we go for the second one.
Round Me Rings, Bell Tells, and Folklore.
Here we go. Good luck. Alistair Daniel.
Alistair Daniels.
I don't know if Alistair was in there more than once. Removed just the once. There we go. Brilliant. Okay. Well, that worked quite well.
I keep on thinking it was going to be
That's another
more.
one we can bring back to the UK and post from here.
Yeah.
So here we go. What's the third book, Norman?
The third book is Afro-American Folktales.
Excellent book.
Yeah.
Excellent.
There we go. Maria Gillen.
Maya Gillen.
I think that should be Maria. I've misspelled.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I think Maria Gillen is coming with us tonight to Morocco.
Going to be with us in Morocco.
Maria will be there for sure.
Okay, then. That's beautiful. Yes, that's why I was asking for checking the spelling, because typos. She went from Maria to Maya.
Yeah. Yeah. My mistake.
Okay.
My error. And so does that leave us one more now?
One more, The King of the Cats, another feline fairy tales.
Here we go. Good luck, everybody. Oh, Shane, you nearly got that. Sarah Skelton. I don't know who Sarah Skelton is.
Okay.
She's the winner of this book.
Well spotted. Norman, thank you so much for your generosity, and it's made a little bit of
good man.
And now we've got Steph's book.
Yeah,
Tickling away
it's my
as we go
pleasure. I just want to say quickly that this is what I put together my library for, to support storytelling through books. So I'm very happy to do this.
But that's great, and you have shared books with us online, I think, in the past. So that's very kind of you, very generous. Thank you for that, Norman.
Yeah.
There we go. Seth's books then. Oh, Mike, you nearly got it. Stephanie Johnson. I don't know who Stephanie is. It's another person.
So somebody has to record that one.
Well, we'll have her email. She donated on the GoFundMe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
So
have her, I'll have her address if it's GoFunding.
Yeah.
There we go. That was brilliant. And I think that was a little bit of fun. That's tickled away in the background all the way throughout all of this. I'll stop by sharing my screen now. And I just want to thank everybody, really,
That wheel was brilliant, Gary. Honestly, fantastic.
Yeah, it was good fun, wasn't it? Yeah. And it just, I mean, you can see everybody's names there, and it's just a little bit of like, woo!
And he's only waited a week for me to get the names to him.
If you hadn't sent them yesterday morning, I would have been literally pulling them out of a hat on bits of paper. So, you know, it all worked in the end. Ladies and gentlemen of the world and of the world of storytelling, it's been a great pleasure to run the Rock the Casbah. But it's probably not going to be as much of a pleasure, as I said to Mike earlier on, as it will be to actually rock up at the Casbah.
Yes.
Oh.
Fantastic.
10 days or so.
Gary, look forward to meeting you.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing everybody
Forward to meeting you all.
in Marrakesh.
Yep.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Ali.
Thank you, Gary. Let me get a word in edgeways.
Sure.
Wrong
No, that's
crowd.
next week.
Why? Oh, right. Thank you, Gary, for running Rock the Casbah for this time. We've managed to raise about 900 pounds, which is fantastic. And what we got coming up, thank you everyone who's donated. Mike, that's Mike Faculty. Your name was in there 500 times, honestly. And it's like people who buy a book of raffle tickets, and then the person who bought one ticket anyway, what we got coming up, we do loads of stuff coming up before the festival. Tuesdays is, as always, 4:30 is our young international tellers, and we have some fantastic tellers from India, sometimes from Gaza, from Nigeria, 18 years and under. We've got storytellers from sort of 9 years old onwards. Friday, which is our Stories for Children, Donald Nelson's back, and then next Sunday is our worldwide story round. And and I think I don't know what happens after that. It's probably some kind of festival. Meanwhile, I'm putting a program together which I for the storytellers I might put up in the storyteller chat and the attendees, but it won't have names on. It will just be a rough shape. But we're getting a shape. We've got a shape. It's a bit like the program is a bit like the floor of the cafe at the moment, but it will be ready. Okay.
John, the British Council are very keen to get the programme so that they can coordinate with their people.
I will.
And they understand it'll be subject to change, but if we get a draft over, it would be really helpful.
You'll have a draft that it should be emailed by the end of tonight.
Awesome.
I've got the draft to Friday. I now need to put in Saturday and Sundays, which is quite light. The last one, which is quite light. There's lots of story rounds. People, for those people coming to the festival here, there's going to be opportunities for people to do sets of anything they want in any form they want. There'll be an opportunity for mother tongue telling, and there'll be story round after story round, and there'll be the Henna Cafe is just open mic permanently. So, and we've got loads of venues, but I'll make sure that program becomes available in the next few days. Okay, thank you, Gary. Thank you, Mike, for all your work. Thank you, Ali, for driving the magic carpet. But Melvin's got a question. Norman, I think, wants a Zoom get together before of festival attendees, if we can, nearer the time in the next week.
Good idea.
That would be really great. I'm sorry. The reason for that is that I figured that we can maybe get through some of the chit chat and whatnot, getting to meet each other before the festival, so that we can enjoy the time while we're there, and maybe cross check ideas for what we're going to do, stuff like that.
That sounds far too organized, but I will give you the opportunity, Norman.
Yes, you will. I'm going to then. I'm finished. Yeah.
I'm African American.
Okay.
There's a bad joke in there. Baden got it.
Right. Okay. Good night, everyone, or good
Bye.
afternoon, or good morning, wherever you are in this world. Thank
To
you.
be continued. Until the next time.
Stay well, everybody. See you soon.
See you. Thank you all.
Baden, you and I got to get
Thank you,
together.
Ali.
Man, we
Thank you,
need
my
to
friend.
talk.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you, Ali.
See
Thank
you
you,
there.
Gary. You're
See you
very
there.
good at
Thank
this.
you, Rafiki.
Ah, my pleasure.
Yo.
Sikitu. You're welcome. Asante
I
Sana.
know.
I'm off. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.